All right, let's dive into item response theory, or IRT. Want to understand how it compares to the classic ways we look at tests and why it's making waves. Well, you're in the right place.
So IRT, it kind of changes how we see tests. Instead of just your total score, it looks at each question, how it relates to what you actually know, like going from a blurry picture to like high definition.
That's a great way to put it. So not just pass or fail, but like a much closer look at what you're good at and what you need to work on.
Yeah, exactly. It's about these latent traits, the skills, abilities we can't see directly, but we figure out from how you answer questions.
Okay, so measuring something hidden. How do we even start doing that?
IRT has a tool, the Item Characteristic Curve, or ICC. It's like a fingerprint for each test question. Shows how the chance of getting it right changes depending on your ability level.
So higher ability, more likely to get it right. And we see that in the shape of the curve.
You got it. Steeper curve means that question is better at telling who knows the stuff from who doesn't. A steep curve. Even a small difference in ability means a big difference in getting it right.
Like a super sensitive detector for ability, that makes sense.
And the curve's position tells us how hard the question is. Curve way over to the right means you need higher ability to have a good chance.
So it's not just right or wrong, but what your answer says about what you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just one way IRT is changing things up in testing.
Now, I know it has a few different names. Why is that?
Oh, right. Latent trait theory, strong true score theory, even modern test theory. They all kind of highlight different sides of it, but it's all about getting a clearer picture of what someone can do.
Sounds powerful, but how does it actually work?
Well, this is where it gets a bit technical. But in IRT, each question has 3 parameters, A, B, and C.
All right, let's break those down. What are they really?
A is discrimination. Remember the steepness? Well, A measures that. Higher A, steeper curve, better it is at separating different ability levels.
So A is like how sharp the question is at separating those who get it from those who don't. What about B?
B is the difficulty. It's where that curve sits on the ability scale. Higher B, harder question. You need more ability for a 50-50 shot at getting it right.
So A is steepness, B is position, and C.
C is guessing. Chance of getting it right even if you have no clue.
Like multiple choice, you could get lucky.
Exactly. And IRT considers that guessing makes the results more accurate.
So by knowing A, B, C, we could really fine-tune those questions, get a much better understanding, huh?
Right, and this takes us to computerized adaptive testing, or CCAT-T.
Oh, I've heard of CCAT, but not exactly sure how it works. What's the IRT link?
Well, CCAT needs IRT. Imagine a program that knows everything about each question. Difficulty, discrimination, even the guessing chance.
So the computer tailors the test to each person as they go.
Yep. Answer right. Computer gives you a harder one. Wrong. Maybe an easier one. Always adjusting to find your true ability level.
Wow, that's really something. Like a personal tutor constantly changing the lesson.
That's a great way to think about it. Makes testing more efficient, more personalized.
Everyone get the unique test. Makes sense.
And it's just one of the many ways IRT is, well, changing how we assess and understand abilities.
This is all really fascinating. But I'm picturing someone with a calculator, tons of data, figuring out all these curves and parameters. How's that work in real life?
Oh, yeah. Doing IRT by hand would be a nightmare. Luckily, we have software made just for this.
So computers are key for IRT.
Oh, absolutely. Software like IRT PRO, it handles huge amounts of data, does all those complex calculations in like a fraction of the time.
So IRT PRO, it's like the behind-the-scenes hero of the IRT world, crunching those numbers, giving us those ICCs?
You could say that. It's a powerful tool helping researchers and test developers see deeper into how assessments work and, how to make them better.
IRT PRO sounds pretty sophisticated. Is it something our listeners could, check out?
Well, IRT PRO is what the pros use, but the good news is there are some free demo versions out there. Things like WinSteps, Facets, Bylog, and FlexSmart.
So people could download those and play around with IRT.
Exactly. Great way to get a feel for what IRT can do.
That's fantastic. I'm starting to see how IRT goes way beyond just school tests. Is it being used to measure other stuff too?
Oh, yeah. All kinds of fields. Education, psychology, healthcare, market research, anything that's like a latent trait.
Okay, now I'm really interested. Give me an example. How's it used?
Well, like, researchers are using IRT to study personality traits, attitudes, even beliefs. It helps us see how those hidden things affect how we act and make decisions.
Wow, so we're not just talking about math problems, but like personality and how you see the world.
You got it. And that's just the beginning. IRT is growing fast, and what we can use it for is, well, it's limited by our imagination.
This has been great. I'm starting to see testing in a whole new way.
I'm glad. There's so much more to explore. In our next segment, we'll get even deeper into IRT. Look at some specific examples and what it means for the future of testing. IRT, it's amazing how it lets us really see those test questions using that ICC, the item characteristic curve.
Right, like the question's fingerprint. So instead of just saying good or bad, we can actually see, what works, what doesn't. But how does that actually work? Like, can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say we have 3 questions, and we've got their ICCs, right? If one curve is way over to the right, remember that's our ability scale, that tells us that question is tough. You need a higher level just to have a chance of getting it right.
So the position of the curve, it tells us how hard it is. Okay, what about that steepness thing? How does that show up on the ICC?
Good question. Steep curve. That means even a tiny difference in ability makes a big difference in whether you answer right. That's good discrimination. The question really separates those who know from those who don't.
Like a really precise tool, getting that fine-grained info about each person.
Exactly. Now imagine a question with a flat curve. That might mean it's not doing a good job of telling different abilities apart. Kind of like a blurry lens, you don't get a clear picture.
This is making more sense now. It's not just these, ideas of difficulty and discrimination, but we actually see them in the curve, like a roadmap of the question.
That's a great way to put it. And those parameters we talked about, A, B, and C, they're the math behind the curve, the numbers for those visuals we're seeing.
Right. A was discrimination, how steep. B was difficulty, where the curve sits. And C, that was the guessing, the chance of getting lucky.
You got it. And software, like IRT PRO, it can calculate those for us, giving test makers real data. They can see which questions work, which need tweaking, even how changes might affect things.
It's amazing how IRT combines, the stats and the visuals to really understand those test questions. It's like X-ray vision for the test.
That's a great way to think about it. That kind of insight is super valuable for making tests that are not only accurate, but fair. But as cool as all this technical stuff is, IRT is about people, right?
That's a good point. We've been focused on how it works, but haven't talked about the human side. How does this change what it's like to actually take a test?
Well, think about it. Old way, everyone gets the same questions no matter what they know. That's frustrating, whether it's too easy or too hard.
It's like we all have to wear the same size shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with CCAT, computerized adaptive testing, which uses IRT, the test changes for you. Like having a suit made just for you.
So you're doing well. Computer gives harder questions. Struggling. It adjusts.
That's it. That personalized approach, it's not just accurate, but it can make taking the test less stressful, more interesting.
I can see that. Feels less like a judgment and more like you're figuring things out together.
Exactly. It's shifting the focus from just ranking people to understanding, how each person learns.
Speaking of, you mentioned some really cool ways IRT is used outside of school. What are some of those?
Oh, yeah. One study used IRT to see how parents and kids view behavior differently, found more agreement on, physical stuff, less on internal stuff, like anger or thinking about yourself.
That's really interesting. Shows how IRT can help us understand, what people think and feel, not just facts. And that's important for how we talk to kids about behavior.
Exactly. Another study, they used IRT to measure creativity in high schoolers, found differences in how guys and girls approached it.
Wow. So IRT can measure things like creativity?
It can. Shows how versatile it is for understanding people,
Feels like the only limit is what we can think of.
That's right. As IRT keeps evolving, becoming, more available, we'll see even more cool and useful ways to use it.
This is really exciting. But I have to say, I'm also a little overwhelmed. It's powerful, but complex. What would you say to our listeners who might be feeling, intimidated?
That's totally understandable. IRT can seem like a lot, but I'd say just start exploring, try those free resources we talked about. Don't be afraid to, play around with the ideas.
Yeah, like learning a new language. It takes time, but it's worth it.
Exactly. And you don't have to become an expert overnight. Even a little understanding can be really helpful.
That makes me feel better. And good news, we have one more part to go. Plenty of time to unpack all this and answer any questions. Learning about IRT, it's really hit me that it's not just like numbers and formulas. This has a real impact on how we understand people, what they can do.
Yeah, for sure. One of the biggest things, I think, is that it challenges that old idea of one test for everyone. With CIT, those computerized adaptive tests, we're getting closer to tests that, well, they change for each person.
Yeah.
Way more personalized, and you get more information that way.
Like instead of buying, clothes off the rack, you're getting a custom-made suit. It not only fits better, but it tells you more about yourself, right?
Exactly. And this idea of making things personal, it's spreading. Like in education, IRT is being used to develop these adaptive learning systems. They work with each student's needs and how they learn best.
So imagine every student has their own, like, personalized lesson plan.
Yeah.
And this system, it adjusts based on how they're doing. It's like every student gets their own personal tutor.
That's the goal. This kind of personalized approach, it could really change education, make it work better for everyone.
It's amazing how IRT isn't just making tests more accurate, but changing how we learn altogether. But what about outside of school? Is it making a difference in other areas?
Oh, yeah. Healthcare is a big one. They're using IRT to make better tools for diagnosing all sorts of conditions.
Wow, that's really interesting. Like, what kind of examples?
Well, take depression and anxiety. IRT is helping develop assessments that can really understand, like, the specifics of what someone's experiencing. So doctors can create a treatment plan that's, actually right for that person.
So it's moving away from just giving someone a label
Yeah.
and really understanding their individual struggles.
Exactly. This personalized approach to healthcare is, well, it's becoming more and more important because we're realizing that, one treatment doesn't work for everyone.
This whole deep dive into IRT has been really eye-opening. It's clearly powerful, but it also needs to be used carefully, responsibly.
Couldn't agree more. As we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this. Item response theory. At its heart, it's about understanding how complex we are as humans. It's about going beyond simple labels and scores to see what makes each person unique. And I think, that's something worth exploring.
Well said. And for those who want to keep learning, remember those resources we talked about. There's a whole world of IRT out there, so keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the boundaries of, how we understand assessment, how we understand each other.